Hi guys, welcome back to Eric's RC Hobby. Today we're going to be doing more upgrades on my RC MN90 Land Rover. First of all, we'll take a look at the car in its current state. You can see here the gearbox and the servo are in pretty bad shape. Here are all the upgrades and replacement parts we'll be installing today. The main upgrades being the DumboRC Transmitter and the WPL 2-speed gearbox, and the replacement parts being metal drive shaft cups, a servo tray and a 17-gram metal servo. Now let's look at the transmitters. The old transmitter was a Quanium 3-channel transmitter, but I wanted a transmitter with more channels. So I got the DumboRC X6 Transmitter, a transmitter with 6 channels. Here you can see the servo that I'd taken apart to try and fix. Unfortunately it didn't work, so here's the new servo. Here you can see the servo tray is cracked, which is more important than you might think, as it is carrying the weight of the metal bumper and winch. Okay, let's disassemble the car in preparation for all the new parts. First we'll get the ESC out the way. Then remove the old gearbox cover, as the new 2-speed gearbox doesn't need a cover. Now we'll remove the servo tray. And attach the metal bumper and winch. Here you can see the crack more clearly. New servo tray on the left, old one on the right. Okay, so let me explain what I'm doing here. Unfortunately, the two servo trays were different at the back, the old one being the layout I wanted. But I needed the strength at the front of the new servo tray. So I'm cutting the two servo trays in half at the same spot and sticking the front of the new servo tray to the back of the old servo tray. You can see here the new front and the old back. Okay, let's super glue them together. Adding some tape for strength. And filling the gaps. then painting the filler black. Let's move on to changing this metal drive shaft cup. You can see here the grub screw is really messed up, so I also bought some new grub screws. First we need to move this metal ring thing out of the way so we can access the pin. Once the pin is out, the drive shaft cup will come straight off. Here is a perfect opportunity to clear out all the grime and grit from inside the drive shaft cup. I put some grease inside the new drive shaft cup, but I probably put a bit too much in. Now we can turn our attention to servos. I decided to put some WPL stickers on the servos, so here I cut them out. This smaller servo is what changes gear on the 2-speed gearbox. The wires from the broken servo were tie wrapped to the ESC wires, so here I'm cutting them off so we can remove the broken servo and change it for the new one. Okay, so now everything was ready. I did the first test and we discovered a problem. So I got the ESC here, plugging it into the receiver of the new DumboRC transmitter, and then plugging the battery into the ESC and the motor, which is just a small motor I got to test, plugging that into the ESC as well, and then plugging the servo into the receiver of the DumboRC transmitter, then turning the transmitter on, turning the ESC on, and everything turns on as it should. But then here with the servo there's a bit of a problem, so if you just listen really carefully here you can hear it jitter. So not sure what was happening there. Nothing happened when you turned the wheel. But the weird thing was is that the throttle was working absolutely fine, no issues with that. But it wasn't a issue with the servo, because I tried 4 different servos I had, and the problem was the same across all the servos, and this servo was new. And I also tried it with another radio transmitter set, and it was the same problem. So I came to the conclusion that it was probably the ESC. So I had to get another ESC, which is annoying. So after the ESC arrived, we had to change over the battery connector from the old ESC to the new ESC, as it is different to the one that comes on the ESC. Here's the cable we've got to take off. So here the old battery connector is soldered and heat shrink to the new ESC. Now we need to solder the motor wires onto the motor. Next we need to set up the servo for the 2-speed gearbox. Ready for the first tests. Here you can see the servo changed it from the low gear to the high gear. Now it's time to fit that gearbox to the chassis. Here you can see that the servo for the 2-speed gearbox is rubbing against one of the 4 links. So I had to remove the 4 link. Then attaching the drive shafts to the gearbox. And the suspension to the chassis. Then finally assembling the rear axle. Time to mount the servo. And screw in the front bumper. Here we are for our first drive on some sandy mud that I had piled together, and sadly I hadn't screwed in one of the grub screws for the rear drive shaft properly, so it came undone. So at this point it was only 2-wheel drive, which meant that it struggled with this, even though if it was in 4-wheel drive it would do it easily. It was making a funny noise and wasn't going properly, and I got a bit worried, but it turned out that just some twigs and mud were stuck in the drive shaft, so I just picked it up and shook it out and it was fine. Due to it only being two-wheel drive, I was able to do some fun burnouts with the front wheels.